Hello, this is Jim McGillivray and welcome to the Pipe Box, your source for all things piping. If you find this video useful, please give it a like and please subscribe to this YouTube channel to see more videos like this. We're going to do a tune today and you can print out the music to this tune by going back to the description of this video on my YouTube channel. You'll see a link to a PDF there. Today we're going to do one of piping's great classics, the Green Hills of Tyrol. This is a 3/4 march that was originally a composition of the Italian composer Gioachino Rossini, who used it in two operas, most notably William Tell in 1829. Though it's been said that Rossini picked the tune up from Austrian folk songs, in fact, the opposite is true. It was after the opera was composed and performed that the melody became part of the folk repertoire. It was subsequently arranged for pipes by Pipe Major John MacLeod of the 93rd Sutherland Highlanders. He was a skyman who was saw active duty in the 1850s and 1860s and died in 1865. He heard the tune performed when he was in Sardinia and subsequently arranged it for pipes. The tune started to appear in piping collections later in the 1800s, notably in William Ross's collection and then Henderson's in around 1900. In 1961, Scottish singer Andy Stewart made this a huge hit in Commonwealth countries. He wrote words to it, used the melody, called it the Scottish Soldier, and almost the whole English-speaking world heard it. It was this that really cemented the Green Hills of Tyrol into the piping repertoire. Tyrol is a state in Western Austria, but aside from that, we don't know how the tune got its title. Today it's played by pipers and pipe bands the world over and is one of our most popular two-parted tunes. The tune is situated somewhere between easy and intermediate on a scale of difficulty. It's not a hard tune, but there are some tools that we can use to bring the greatest musicality we can out of this tune, and that's what we're going to look at today. This is not going to be a technical lesson so much as a musical lesson in how we can get the most musically out of the Green Hills of Tyrol. Let's start by hearing the whole tune played on a Blair digital chanter. As you can hear, it's not a fast tune at all. It's relaxed and it's measured and it's on the beat. Let's have a look at the whole score for a moment here. As you can see, it's not a tune that's dense with technique. There's a lot of space in the tune for pointing and holding out notes. One thing I would like you to notice here are the lead-in notes at the start of the first bar in each part. Most piping publications in the last 100 years don't use lead-in notes in 3/4 marches. The left foot would be on the very first low A. Look at this example of the same tune written with no lead-in notes in the first or second parts. In a band, you would play a 2-beat E and hit the low A on the left foot. In the second part, the left foot would be on the C. Let's go back to my setting. We see here in the first part, the low A and the B are lead-in notes, and the left foot is on the C. The intro E in a pipe band would be 1 beat. In the second part, the left foot is on the high A. The lack of lead-in notes in 3/4 marches comes down to us from the military tradition. It's been that way in military publications for 100 years, and I just don't think it properly reflects the rhythmic structure of the tune. That's why I prefer the lead-in notes. Why is this important to you? If you play a setting of this tune with lead-in notes as a solo player, and then you find yourself in a band or a group situation such as a mass band where you're asked to play Green Hills of Tyrol, almost certainly they will play the Green Hills with a 2-beat E introductory note. They will not play the lead-in notes as I've published them here. As I mentioned, this isn't a particularly difficult tune. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume that you know how to play grips, D throws, doublings, and E strikes. What I'd like to focus on for the next few minutes are 3 things. 1, pushing out the first 8th note in each even pair. 2, playing technique squarely on the beat. And 3, holding dotted 8th notes. Let's start by looking at pairs of even 8th notes. On this screen, I have circled every place where we see 2 even 8th notes in a row. As you can see, there are a lot of even pairs of 8th notes. What I'm going to say now applies to almost any time signature, and here it is. Whenever you encounter 2 even 8th notes, think of the first note in each pair as being longer or stronger. You're not exactly going to hold it so much as you're going to make sure you milk every millisecond of that note. These notes usually have a piece of technique on them, and that's another message to you that these notes need to be pushed out. For example, in line 1, we see 5 places where there's a pair of 8th notes. Without necessarily doing anything with your hands, I want you to think about the first note in each pair as being a stronger note, a louder note, a longer note, whatever you need to think of to give it just a little bit of added stress, like this. Do da bre ha dum do bra hi bi da ho ba hi da bro hi dum, something like this. This will really help you create a groove in this tune that you can settle into. That's important to think about 8th notes, not just in 3/4s, but in 4/4s, in 2/4s, lots of time signatures where you get a pair of 8th notes. Think of the first one as being strong. Now, I said this was not a technical lesson, but we do need to talk about one aspect of technique. In this music, I've circled all the G grace notes in doublings that need to be played on the beat. Of course, all the G grace notes need to be played on the beat, but it's the ones in doublings that tend to be ignored. In doublings, pipers have a tendency to put the second grace note on the beat rather than the first grace note, which is the G. If you haven't seen it, I have an entire exercise book called Rhythmic Fingerwork based on the premise that when you play a doubling, the G grace note is on the beat. So when you hit a doubling in this tune, make sure your G grace note finger hits the chanter when your foot hits the floor, like this. Pipe Major John Wilson of Edinburgh used to say, playing bagpipes is easy. All you have to do is play on the beat. Easier said than done, perhaps. Okay, now we've looked at pairs of eighth notes, and we've looked at G grace notes in doublings. Let's have a look at a few dotted notes. Here I've circled all the dotted eighth notes in the tune. These are dotted notes that need to be held. As you can see, there aren't many of them, so we need not to miss any. Most pipers can hold a note. What gives some pipers trouble is playing the following short note short enough. I'm going to ask you to play the short note almost as short as you can, making sure that the preceding long note is extremely long, like this, in line 1. Pipers often forget about the lead-in notes to any time signature. Make sure you hold the first low A. Then near the end of the line, we're going to hit some more dotted notes. I'm playing that long note just about as long as I can, and the short note just as short as I can make it while still letting it be audible. Similarly, in the last two bars, bars 7 and 8, then in part 2, bars 2, 3, and 4, particularly bars 3 and 4, we have some long notes in difficult places because the short notes are followed by doublings. You might find that little bit technically challenging. And in the last line of the tune, we have 3 dotted eighths in the mid and late part, like this. Be very patient with those long notes. Pipers do have a tendency not to hold long notes long enough, especially when there are very few of them in a tune. We get used to playing notes the same length. So, keeping in mind these 3 things, even eighth notes, G grace notes on the beat, and pointed dotted notes, let's hear the whole first part played on the practice channel. As you can hear, it's very measured, it's on the beat, and hopefully it makes you want to tap your foot. Now, let's listen to the second part. I want you to pay particular attention to the first bar in the second part, first bar of each line. There are 2 high A quarter notes there. Notice how long those quarter notes are held out to their maximum length. Here's part 2. That then is the evergreen Green Hills of Tyrol, one of our most popular pieces. For tempo, I would say somewhere between 74 beats per minute, which is fairly relaxed, and 86, which is moving along. One thing I think it's important to note that 3/4 marches are often called retreat marches. This is not a retreat from battle, so you don't have to play the tune quickly because anyone's running away from something. The retreat means it's the return to the barracks at the end of the workday, so it can be played at a leisurely pace as you wish. Remember, everything we've discussed here about Green Hills can be applied to any 3/4, any 4/4, and many, if not most, 2/4 marches. So, that's it for today. From me, Jim McGillivray at the Pipe Box. Good piping.